seeing?
Do not put them in the code. The key and the connection string.
Yes, no. Angry faces.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you see happening, or what do you think is happening in this picture?
Yeah.
So I see angry faces as well. Anybody else? I see a group of people from different races discussing. Yes. Different races. What else do you see that's different? There's some distinguishing attributes, I guess, for purpose in the picture. Uniforms, yes. What else? Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, if you feel like
okay. So this is a snippet from a video that's part of the training that has to charts and lists. Yep. That has to do with basically what you're seeing is a negotiation table for peace. So what you see on the table is an attempt to write a peace agreement. One of the things that I've actually been trained on in my academic training is how to literally write an effective peace agreement. It's really interesting to see, like, for me, myself in my career, to go from like the academic side of it, the analysis paper exercise side of it, to then practicing the work that I was, taught to know. It's been very, very fascinating for me to reflect. But what you'll see here is we talked about inclusion at the beginning, and there is this trend, or not even trend, there's a phrase that is often presented in our world of work, and it stopped for a few years, but it started again, where folks that I'm surrounded with say you can't just add women and stir. You can't just add women and stir and expect equality to be achieved or their voices to be heard. So one thing that I mentioned at the beginning was that one of the things you'll walk away with is really understanding the effective modalities of inclusion. We talk about what that looks like, and it can be above and beyond, a peace building scenario. You can step back and think, okay, if I'm talking about inclusion, what does it mean? Does it mean that I have a voice? How does it look like when I have a voice? And if I look at this context, I'll say, okay, we see women at the table. Okay, they're occupying seats. In this one, I can see a little bit of friendliness with the paper, with the lady on the right touching the paper. So maybe, she has a little bit of control in what she's saying, or directing. But there are situations, and we'll go into a study where there's been a study done on, what it has looked like when member states have been brought to the table to negotiate during a conflict. And when, mediators have come in externally and they've said, you need to have women in the room, what does that look like? Does it mean that inclusion is being achieved because they're sitting on the side of the room? Because that happens. Does it mean inclusion has been achieved because they were outside the room and they got to come in for a few minutes? Because that happens. Does it look like women sitting at the table, but they're not allowed to talk? Because that happens. Or are they sitting at the table and they're allowed to speak, but when they speak, there's no notes taken? That's a big one, right? So we let them speak, but we didn't know what they were saying, and therefore it's not built into it. So we'll talk about what that looks like. And what's really fascinating about this conceptualization of operationalizing inclusion and the modalities of it is the fact that there's so much, it can be applied across different scenarios in life and your work as well.